Welcome to the Hard-Fought Faith. Here, you'll hear real testimonies and conversations about people who've walked the hard-fought faith, who've sat in the fire and wrestled with God. We're grateful you're sitting with us.
Welcome to the Hard-Fought Faith. Today's guest is Tianna. Our conversation today is going to be about being a believer and living with the realities of a chronic illness and the way that that shapes your day-to-day life and how that impacts your faith. Tianna, thank you so much for your willingness to share your testimony and your love for Jesus. And if you're ready, we are ready to walk with you. And I was hoping that we could start, if you could just tell me a little bit about your salvation experience.
So I got married in 1994 to the love of my life, and shortly after we were married, I think we went to the military, and then we came home and we had a little girl and a new baby, and we were just doing life. Easter came around, and I was going to a class party, and I had met someone there who, she was probably one of the only mothers that would even, talk to me, because I was a very young mother. I was about 25, 26 at the time. And she asked me what I was doing for Easter. And I said, I didn't know, but I was looking for a church to go to. I was kind of drawn to the idea of getting dressed up for church and a holiday meaning something more than just, being at home and getting a basket. So she invited me and I went. And I realized in that moment when I went that everything I had been missing in my life from childhood to marriage was in that building. It was needing the Lord. I had always felt like there was, it didn't matter what I was doing, something was missing. I kind of had a feeling that marriage would kind of heal all the parts of me that were broken from childhood, all the things that I was missing, safety, security, love, belonging. I thought marriage would do it. Thought having children would do it. I still felt kind of empty. And so I had walked in that building and instantly knew, okay, this is what I've been missing. I need the Lord. And so I gave my life to the Lord in 2001 on May 27th. I practically ran to the altar. It was something that I was looking forward to do. That was the easy part. It was the part afterwards where sort of my faith kind of met, the pavement of life and difficulty set in.
One of those things that was difficult was being diagnosed with a chronic illness. How long before you got that diagnosis after you were saved?
It was a few years into our journey with the Lord. During that time, my husband had, also had given his life to the Lord a little bit later than me, and I had been experiencing some issues for some time, but I just kind of kept it to myself. I just thought it was due to tired, maybe diet. I really didn't know. And then my husband got a calling to Bible college. He decided that he was just going to leave his business and we were going to pick up and move away to Bible college. And around that time, I had become more and more sick, and we had a commissioning ceremony at our church where they were, commissioning us to pick up and move off to Bible college. We were leaving our business, our home, and moving to a campus. And that day, instead of leaving in a U-Haul to South Florida, I ended up in the ER, deathly ill and on the verge of death. Basically, my heart rate was like 150. They were telling me to sit down, you're going to have a heart attack. My kidneys were shutting down. I had lost a lot of blood. So instead of headed off to Bible college, kind of doing what God called us to do, I ended up in the hospital.
And were you diagnosed around that time, or did you have to wait for a diagnosis?
So I was there for about a week of testing, and they were doing all the testing. And initially I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And at the end of that 7 days, they were like, at the time, they said I had funny liver enzymes and that my functions looked a little weird. But when I get to South Florida, just follow up with the doctor, because at that point, everyone was thinking we were just going to stay home and we weren't going to go away to Bible college. But I had been told that Crohn's disease was just going to be like a lifetime, diagnosis. I would always deal with it. It was no cure. So in my mind, once I'm good to go here and I've gotten all the treatment, we're still going to Florida. So at the end of that 7 days that I was in the hospital, we still got in the car and went to Florida. And when I got to Florida, it was a few months later, it was probably about 6 weeks or so later, I turned bright yellow. And so actually it was funny because I thought it was the medication I was taking for Crohn's, because they were these dark reddish orange pills.
Oh.
Because I looked in the mirror and I thought, why does my skin look that way? So, but then my eyes were that way, and it was a nurse on campus. She was like, yeah, I think you need to go to the ER. So I go to the ER and they say, oh, by the way, a quick little ultrasound of my abdomen. And they said, oh, by the way, not only do you have Crohn's, but you have a rare illness called primary sclerosing cholangitis, and you're going to need a transplant. And there's no cure. And there's only about 20,000 people in the United States with it. And we were like, what?
Oh my goodness.
And so here we are at Bible college, and we're seeking, care and help. And I had to have stents put in my liver to help the liver drain. And yeah, it just was constant hospital stays and after the fact. So
how did that, having you followed the Lord down to Florida, you have this diagnosis. What did it feel like in that moment, getting the diagnosis and kind of realizing that it was more, first of all, such a kind of rare condition, but that it was going to be more lifelong, and what it would entail? What did that, as a believer, what did that moment, what was that collision like for you?
I mean, some people would say, were you angry? Were you confused? I honestly knew from the jump that it was something that God had placed in my life, or allowed in my life, if you will, because I don't want to say that, we can't really nail that down. But, as long as we're on this side of heaven, we're going to have illness and struggles. And so I knew that it was something in my life that the Lord would use. I'd always been told, Romans 8:28, he works all things together for our good. And so I never felt angry or upset or confused by it. During that time, what I felt was, okay, I really need the Lord in this. And I have to focus on my relationship with the Lord, and I can't focus on my own strength because I physically just couldn't. I was just so ill. I'm talking about 10 days at a time, every month in the hospital with tubes and blood transfusions and all of that, while taking care of 3 children at the time, and my husband studying for school. And so I knew I couldn't count on myself. And the thing is becoming a Christian was the easy part for me, and it's not that way for everyone, but it was the easy part for me because I truly just wanted and needed something that I didn't have. And so I ran towards it, and I almost excelled at it. And so I probably would have boasted in my own strength had it not been for illness. Illness really taught me that, okay, this is completely out of my control. And I can only rely on the Lord for the strength for every single day. I mean, raising kids while that ill, and being in the middle of stepping out of the boat, if you will, out into the ministry, and living in a Bible college campus, and being broke and not having any health insurance during the time. And yeah, so it just, I always knew that it was so that I would see God's heart for me.
Are there any disappointments along that journey?
I think, and like I said, this is not the same for everyone, but for me, when you're ill, there are places that, your family will be with you. Your friends can support you. You can have all that support. And we had an amazing support. I had an amazing support system with my husband and even my children. And my illness lasted years. This wasn't a short term. I mean, I still have those chronic illnesses. I'm just on the better side of it. But this was years. I mean, our entire Bible college experience, and after Bible college, to transplant, to further to more surgeries and more setbacks. And the disappointments were more about So I think about it this way. Sometimes we try to compare ourselves to people in the Bible, stories in the Bible. And I remember when I first got sick, someone said, well, maybe it's like Job, here you guys are doing what the Lord has called you to do. And certainly I wouldn't call us righteous like Job was, but we were doing what seemed to be all the right things. But yet we were having all these setbacks financially, physically, and even betrayal by people around us. But I think what happened is, as a family and as believers, we just kind of drew more into each other as a family. It kind of rooted us together. We focused on what was important, and God was never the disappointing factor. It was the things around us that were disappointing and hard to deal with. But for us, those situations just pushed us closer into the arms of the Lord. I mean, for me, it just pushed me closer into the arms of the Lord. So there are places, people can't go with you. There's procedure rooms and tests, and people can't feel your pain. They can't feel your fear. But for me, that was really when I leaned on the Lord, like he really was with me in those moments, because I was utterly alone. I mean, Rick couldn't go with me into rooms. I was utterly by myself. And so I never felt disappointed by the Lord, but more disappointed in the things that were happening around me. But those things only pushed me closer to the Lord, realizing that he ultimately was our strength and our anchor in the middle of such suffering and disappointment.
That's good. That's good. And with how long roughly have you lived with having a chronic illness at this point?
So it's 2026. So at this point in Bible college, so we were in Bible college for about 4 or 5 years, and there was a break in between. And then, so I was diagnosed in 2005, and I received a liver transplant in 2016. So we're talking a lot of years. And so 2016, a little bit after that, I had another surgery where I had cancer cells in my colon. So they had to completely remove that. And so that was 2019. And so there were lots of setbacks in the middle of that. But during Bible college was probably really the earliest part of it, because not only were we trying to finish Bible college, but we were coming home and then trying to plant a church after Bible college. And right when we're planting the church, I suddenly become really even more ill. And it's like, okay, you need a transplant now. Mm-hmm. And so that was probably 2015 when they said, okay, you need a transplant now or you're going to die. And meanwhile, we're trying to do church. And there would be times where my husband would have to preach and we didn't have anyone helping us. This is one of those things where I talk about, we felt kind of betrayed and left out on our own by the people around us. So it really was just the Lord carrying us. And he would go, I would have sepsis. And of course, we wouldn't know until we got to the emergency room, but he would go and he would preach a sermon and he'd be like, come back and get me and then take me to the hospital. And they'd be like, oh, she has septic shock. So,
oh my goodness.
That happened quite a few times. So yeah, I mean, the illness was pretty much our entire faith journey of following God. We've always been told about radical faith. You need to have radical faith, and it was the entire time.
The entire time. So
time.
This is from the start of ministry to your current ministry now has been dancing with that illness.
Yes, and since 2019, it certainly has settled down. Sure. But from 2005 to 2019, it was definitely dancing with that illness and among other things in our lives.
Having found Jesus before this chronic illness, how do you think your life would have been different if you did not have the Lord through this process?
Oh, well, I mean, here's the thing. Becoming a Christian doesn't remove suffering or add suffering to our lives. Mm-hmm. It doesn't add. I mean, we're all going to have it. It just gives purpose and meaning to it. It gives us a place to put it, really. You can take whatever suffering or troubles or heartaches, whatever that is, and you can place it at the feet of Jesus. Without Christ, I don't know how we would have functioned. People often talk about my husband and I, we have this amazing relationship and, we love each other so much, and we truly do. What you see is what you get. We really do adore each other. But we were no different than any other couple out there, that we loved each other, but we were definitely a product of the world and the world's mindset, that I don't know how we would have survived. Our marriage would have survived with the mindset and the way we were raised and some of the things that we dealt with growing up without the Lord. Like, the Lord really just changed our marriage. I mean, illness really changed our marriage as well. I mean, I think about it like this. So it's so funny when we go to the beach. My family laughs at me because I'm always looking down at the ground, and it's because I'm looking for sea glass.
Okay.
And sea glass is hard to find. It's a hard thing to find. You can look for hours and not find one solitary piece. So it's not common. It's not ordinary. It's not everywhere you look. And so I think about marriage in the middle of suffering and illness and radical faith and how that changed us. So you take a piece of glass before it's in the ocean, and it's this thin, kind of raw, jagged, sharp. I mean, it'll cut your hand. A sharp, kind of see-through piece of glass. Nothing special. And then you toss it in the ocean, and the ocean can be chaotic. It can be stormy. You know, it's back and forth. That piece of glass is at the mercy of the ocean, and it's not a slow process. It's over time. The edges are softened, and the glass is smoothed, and it even gets a little bit thicker with all the sand in the water, or the salt in the water, and it comes out this beautiful, soft. It's different, but it comes out this beautiful soft piece of sea glass, and it's a gift, and it's not ordinary. You know, it's like something went in one way, and then God brought it out another way, and brought it out even more beautiful, transformed, and even stronger and softer. And so our marriage, our life, really, because of illness, even though it lasted so long, has become like, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like I get choked up because whenever someone asks me, and I didn't want to do this, but whenever someone asks me, and I have been asked many times over the years, because when I tell you the suffering that I can't put words to the kind of suffering that I felt in those years, and how scary it was, and how hard it was for my family, and we often felt very alone in it, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it really gave our family an opportunity, or especially myself, to really know what it is to sit in the lap of God and be pressed against the heart that beats only for us. And so, I just wouldn't trade that. If I could trade 10, 15 years of all the scary, painful things that happened, and all the hard things that happened with my children, and even the betrayal from friends, and the struggles, I just wouldn't. You couldn't pay me any amount of money to trade that time, because I would not know God's heart for me and for our family had it not been for those things. So suffering has really been a gift. I know that sounds odd, but it really has been a gift in our family.
Has walking through suffering, how has that shaped the way that you approach others who are suffering, or maybe who are feeling that isolation?
I get it, I get what that suffering is. And for the believer, I know that they know who the Lord is and how good he is to us. And I think the thing that I would want someone to know that was suffering, that maybe is confused and doesn't get it, is that God's not distant from the suffering. He's not distant from it. He's with us in it. And you may not know it. I think about Moses, and, he wanted God. He wanted to see God, really, for strength to move forward. I just need strength to move forward. Can I see some of your glory, But obviously he couldn't see God completely. So he was hidden in that cleft. And when I think about hidden in that cleft of that rock, you're hidden in something deeper and something stronger. And then God places his hand over you, and he protects you. And so in the middle of suffering, when I see someone who's going through that, I just think, I hope you feel God's hand over you, because he is not distant from it. He's there. You will not be overwhelmed by it, and you will not. There's a point to it. That's the beauty of it. There will be a point to it. And so when I see someone suffering, I want them to know that. I want them to know that you're not alone in it. He is with you where other people cannot be. All you have to do, he's your white knuckle promise. All you have to do is reach out. Just know that he's there. You're never alone in it.
And I don't want to jump too far from chronic illness, but one thing you said was, as believers, having the body of Christ, there are times, I know for myself, where church there can be disappointment there. People don't always jump in the way we hope, or they don't always understand the things we walk through. Can you tell me a little bit about I want to sit there for a second, because for people who are going through hardship, not always do they have the support of a church, or maybe the church imperfectly understands it. But how do you deal with disappointment when it comes from, those around you who also have that same hope that you do? How did you process that?
Not well all the time. It's sort of added to, so it's one thing to suffer from something like physical illness, because we just know that's part of life. But
Right.
when hurts and heartaches and betrayal happen when it shouldn't have, didn't always respond the best way. And I think I was looking at someone asked earlier, what do you do when these things still hurt? When you're still dealing, because there are some things, like I can look at my illness over the years and I can see the point. Like I can look back and see the point, and I can see the purpose, and I can see what God was doing. There will be some things in life that come along where you're like, okay, what was the point of that?
Right.
Like, what was the reason for that, Lord? Because I'm not getting it. And there's still some situations even today, past all the illness and past even some of the moments of heartache and betrayal and all the things that we went through during that time, where I just don't always know the why, And so I think of it like this. Hurts happen, and there's not always a clear picture or reason why. We don't always see that purpose like we hope, right? So the purpose is always so that we are, pushed towards the foot of the cross with anything. So we're placing things on our purpose. So we see God. It's always about our relationship with God. So there are some things that you just have to daily put on the altar. You have to every single day put it on the altar, and it's okay to struggle. Faith does exist along pain and fear, disappointment. It doesn't mean that you don't have enough faith when you're still struggling with difficulties, when you're even angry or disappointed or whatever. Faith still exists alongside those things. And so I think about it this way. I have a transplant scar, and it's massive. It's like the size. It looks like a Mercedes. It's called the Mercedes scar. So it covers my entire abdomen across the top and down the middle, right? So it's healed. It's absolutely healed. Like there's a scar there, but it's absolutely healed. But it changes the way I move, the way I breathe, and it still sometimes causes me discomfort. Like I'll never be free from the knowledge of what happened there in my abdomen. Yeah. Like, so it definitely is a reminder of those things. And then I change the way I move in response to it. So it hurts when I'm this way, so I lean this way, or when I breathe that way, I can't breathe that way, so I breathe this way. And so these hurts and these difficulties in life change the way we respond. We respond to God. So what happens is that when those things come up, I am forced to, again, place them at the feet of the Lord and just ask, like, God, help me with this. Like today, if I have to place it at the altar every single day, I will, and sometimes you don't do it daily, but other times, you need to do it daily. And they're just reminders of our need for the Lord. And I may have completely gotten off of what your question was.
That was beautiful. No, that was beautiful. When you have that hurt, how do you keep that hurt separate from the way that you walk with Jesus? How do you, especially when it's somebody, because every person is going to make a mistake. As a person in the church who loves Jesus, I know that there are people I've hurt, and we can apologize, but that doesn't take the hurt that we necessarily gave to somebody else. So as a person who's felt that hurt from fellow believers, how do you kind of reflect that with the Lord? You say you bring that to him and you lay it there, but how do you keep it separate from him, not putting that the hurt of the church is Jesus' hurt? Do you know what I mean?
You mean like blaming God, like, God, why'd you allow that? Or
maybe, yes, that's a really good way to phrase it.
I guess because that's the one thing I just never, I've always, like, God has never failed me. He's never disappointed me in that sense. I've always realized that all of the things that were happening on the outside, outwardly, of who God is separate from who God is in my life. Like, he's been so faithful, and I've known his heart so deeply for me and felt his presence so deeply that the things that were happening were never about God and his character. They were always about other people and the mistakes that they make, because of, we all fall short of the glory of God.
Yes.
So I've never thought, oh, this God, why would you allow that? In a sense to where I was angry. I was more like, okay, well, what was the purpose of that? But never about who he is to me, because, like I said, through illness, he's been so real to me that nothing anyone else at this point in my life could do would change the way I view God. Maybe the harder part is that reminding myself that I can't react in a fleshly way towards what other people are doing. And that's the hard part. And I don't have that all together. Certainly. I don't have that mastered. I do want to react sometimes in an angry way or whatever, but that's about me and my, sometimes inability to, behave the way the Lord would have me to behave, or what I know is to be the right way. I mean, that's just a human response, but it's never been about my relationship with God, because I know who he is. He's never failed or disappointed me in that sense.
And so you've walked through the process, your life before salvation. You've had a chronic illness that hasn't just been, a little piece of your life. It's been a lot of your life all through this ministry, and you've had that church hurt. What does your faith look like today? When you walk with the Lord, what does today look like, having lived through those things and knowing that even though our future in eternity is certain, our future with our health, our future with, the different hard things that come, what does your faith look like today?
So today, it's funny. I'm kind of in this place in life where I'm like, okay, Lord, what now? What am I going to do with this? So I've always known that the things that I went through and that we've gone through as a family was so that we could see his heart for us, and so that we could lean in on into the strength that he offered us, not necessarily for the gift of the strength, but for the gift of his presence. And so I've always known that. I think in the past, though, if I were being completely, just transparent, and I always wondered a little bit like, okay, Lord, I went through all of that. Surely there must be some kind of purpose in it that's more earthly for me. It's and that would mean in what we're doing right now, like the sharing of a story. Sure. And I think about what is it 2 Corinthians, where it says, what is that? It's like, praise be to God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us all in our troubles, so that we can comfort those in trouble with the comfort we receive ourselves. And so that is kind of where I'm at today, where I'm just looking to glorify God and comfort others and help others with kind of my experience and what we've gone through as a family, and then share that with others. And I think we already are in some way doing that. And then my husband's doing that with, preaching every Sunday. Yeah. But that's where I am today, is just wanting to lean more into, okay, Lord, I just want to glorify you with everything I am. If it means sharing my story, then, I want to do that. It's just funny that you asked me to do it. So that's kind of where I am today. So, hopefully that's my desire, is that somebody will hear this and that they will feel encouraged and a little less alone, and like someone who gets it, who knows what it's like. So.
Well, I am so appreciative of you opening that up, being so honest in the good moments and those hard things, those moments where the Lord is still refining us, and where he's, yes, it is a race. It is a journey. It is not, we're not arrived. We're still being shaped by the Lord. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for your honesty with that and your testimony. But thank you so much for sharing your story of hard-fought faith and how the Lord has sustained you and doing that so that you can reach others. I'm just really appreciative of you giving your time to do that.
Thank you so much, Tessa. I was glad to do it. It's been a joy.